Good morning, everybody. I'm Don Stewart, and welcome to another edition of Breaking News. Today is Wednesday. It's the 18th day of June, 2025, and we are still waiting to find out about the possibility of whether the United States is going to enter the war on the side of Israel with Iran. We thought last night we'd hear something, and it's still been crickets. So, as we're waiting, we have five very important headlines to give to you that kind of summarize where we're at right now. So, let's look at them. First of all, they've heard finally, that is, the United States, Israel, and the world, they've heard from the Iran's supreme leader. He says any U.S. strikes on Iran will have serious consequences. He did this in Farsi, Hebrew, and English, and so he's really getting the word across that they're not giving up, that is Iran. The U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities are on the table, according to Fox News. The discussion that yesterday was had between Trump and his advisors, it seems, we don't know what happened. We know there are some people in his inner circle that are against it, so there's no message yet what they're going to do. So we keep waiting. Now, Iran also, on their behalf, prepares to hit the U.S. regional bases with missiles if Trump joins the war. This is from Zero Hedge, and this is not surprising. So that would really, really change the game if that took place. Now, we've got two other stories here. This one here is fascinating. Iranian mines in the Strait of Hormuz could shut down one-fifth of the oil flows in a week. This is from a website called Intellinews, and it goes into great detail in explaining how the mines that Iran could put in the Persian Gulf, there in the Strait of Hormuz in particular, could really upset terribly the world's oil supply. And you can imagine what that would do to the prices of everything. So that's on the table for Iran. In fact, they mentioned it yesterday. One of the things they could possibly do is shut down the Strait of Hormuz. And finally, Iran's Reza Pahlavi, he's the eldest son of the late Shah of Iran, say they have a 100-day transition plan in place if Khamenei fails or falls. Well, we'll see. Again, we don't know. We're going to have to wait on all these things. So that's where we left it yesterday, and we're still here today. So let's summarize it again, what's happened since we last were with you. Well, the first thing is Iran's supreme leader says any U.S. strike on Iran will have serious consequences. This is from the Jerusalem Post. In his first remarks since Friday, when he delivered a speech broadcast on state media after Israel began bombing Iran, Khamenei said peace or war could not be imposed on the Islamic Republic. Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said in a statement read by a television presenter on Wednesday that his country will not accept U.S. President Donald Trump's call for an unconditional surrender. In his first remarks since Friday, he delivered this speech on state media after Israel began bombarding Iran, and he said peace or war could not be imposed on the republic. He said intelligent people who know Iran, the Iranian nation, and its history will never speak to this nation in threatening language because the Iranian nation will not surrender, he said. The Americans should know that any U.S. military intervention will undoubtedly be accompanied by irreparable damage. In fact, yesterday was another story coming out of Iran, and supposedly today, Iran's going to hit Israel, I guess, with a force that they've never seen before, sometime today. And what they do, they hit at night, so we've got a few hours still till nighttime. We're here about a little before 6 a.m. on the west coast of the United States. That'd make it 4 o'clock in the afternoon in Israel. But in a few hours later, when darkness hits, this is when they strike, and they're threatening to have a strike like nothing else. Now, they threatened that the other day, a consistent strike all night against Israel about 2 nights ago, and nothing happened. So we'll have to wait and see. Now, thousands of people were fleeing Tehran on Wednesday after Israeli warplanes bombed the city overnight, and a source says Trump was considering options that include joining Israel in attacking Iranian nuclear sites. Israel's military said 50 Israeli jets had struck around 20 targets in Tehran overnight, including sites producing raw materials, components, and manufacturing systems for missiles. A source familiar with internal discussions said Trump and his team were considering a number of options, which included joining Israel in strikes against Iranian nuclear sites. Iran has conveyed to Washington that it would retaliate against the United States for any direct participation. Its ambassador to the United States to the United Nations in Geneva, Ali Bahraini, said he has already saw the U.S. as complicit in what Israel is doing, so they would have no problem attacking the U.S. Now, we have a second headline from Fox News that basically lays it all out very simply. U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities are on the table. Okay, on the table doesn't mean they're going to follow through with it. Two senior White House officials told Fox News this. Two Israeli officials told Axios that Prime Minister Netanyahu and his Israeli defense establishment continue to believe that Trump that Trump is likely to enter the war in the coming days to bomb Iran's underground enrichment facility. They really think it's going to happen. In fact, our stories last night thought it was going to happen last night, as you saw. So far, the U.S. has helped Iran defend itself from incoming missiles, but declined to take part in offensive operations. Now, they're bringing more assets to the area, to the Middle East, that is the U.S., so it seems they're trying to put things in place. Now, whether it's for only defensive purposes, if Iran attacks the bases, or whether it's offensive to help Israel, that's what we're waiting to find out. All right, so headline number three lays it out also. Iran prepares to hit U.S. regional bases with missiles if Trump joins the war. There's some zero hedge. There's widespread reporting that President Trump is mulling direct U.S. military assistance to Israel as it battles Iran, which would mean America is getting sucked into another major war in the Middle East. Tehran is in response has warned that it is prepared to hit U.S. bases in the region if Trump pulls the trigger. Iran has prepared missiles and other military equipment for strikes on U.S. bases in the Middle East should the United States join Israel's war against the country, according to American officials who have reviewed intelligence reports. The United States has sent about 3 dozen refueling aircraft to Europe that could be used to assist fighter jets protecting American bases or that would be used to extend the range of bombers involved in any possible strike on Iranian nuclear facilities. So they got going to do a dual purpose there, these refueling aircraft. Fears of a wider war are growing among American officials as Israel presses the White House to intervene in this conflict with Iran. And here's the key. If the United States joins the Israeli campaign and strikes Fordo, that's the key Iranian nuclear facility, the Iranian-backed Houthi militia will almost certainly resume strikes against ships in the Red Sea, the official said. That would add to the problem. And you've got the pro-Iranian militias in Iraq and Syria would probably try to attack the U.S. bases there also. So this is one of the worries. And more. Other officials say that in the event of attack, Iran could begin to mine the Strait of Hormuz, a tactic meant to pin American warships in the Persian Gulf. This is in the New York Times. So we're going to deal with that story next. Meanwhile, the exile-backed U.S. Iranian monarchy is urgently calling for Iranians to rise up in the streets against Ayatollah in a massive deployment. Reza Pahlavi is issuing these statements from U.S. soil where the family has long resided. And that'll be our fifth story here. So this story here kind of sets the stage for the next two. Trump's National Security Council meeting in the White House Situation Room has ended. Will tonight bring U.S. warplanes and pilots directly into the conflict and American troops at regional bases into harm's way? Well, that was a story yesterday. It didn't happen, and many people are surprised by it. It's we're in a waiting period. Now, this next story is from a website called Intellinews, and it says Iranian mines in the Strait of Hormuz could shut down a fifth of oil flows in a week. Now, I'm going to give you a part of the article. It's a longer article. We've given you the link to it. It's a fascinating article, but here's the gist of it. Iran has somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 naval mines, according to U.S. intelligence estimates, which could be used to block the Straits of Hormuz and halt the flow of a fifth of the world's oil traffic in a week. An analysis written by BNE Intellinews sister publication Newsbase, which covers global energy issues, concluded that Iran could seed the straits with mines at any time in its choosing. Gulf oil production for export would stop almost immediately after Tehran declared that Hormuz was mined. As the storage facilities in the Gulf are limited, as the buffers back up, oil producers that depend on the ports on the Gulf to export crude would have to cap their wells and stop production. Even a small number of mines would stop tanker traffic through Hormuz immediately, as global insurers would demand that tankers either turn around or, if already in the Persian Gulf, immediately drop anchor rather than risk hitting a mine. Once Iran has declared the strait is mined, the delay while a Western alliance was formed would allow the Islamic Republic to continue to sow mines at a rate of about 100 per day until the key channel was impassable, according to military experts interviewed by Newsbase. The Gulf Cooperation Councils, called the GCC countries, would likely immediately declare a total exclusion zone, accompanied by a complete closure of its members' ports to smaller traffic. But the U.S. naval presence in the Gulf is limited, and the GCC has no effective means of preventing mine laying by Iranian submarines. Once the focus of the war shifts to shipping in the Gulf, Iran's mine stocks and submarine fleet are large enough to support the mining campaign, possibly, now get this, for as long as 6 months. If Iran decides to close Hormuz with mines, it will definitely succeed in its aim in the short term Absent a major shift in policy towards preemptive action, the West cannot stop Iran from initiating a mining campaign in the Gulf, says Gab Dawn, a former British naval officer and the author of the news-based analysis. The threat to global oil supplies from an Iranian mining campaign is therefore material and would be effective. In short, while peace prevails, Iran has the capability to lay as many mines as it wishes in whatever location it wishes at any time. Now, that's a frightening story. And so we'll keep that one in mind. So Iran still has options. They're not out of options here. So we will see. Now, headline number five, Iran's Reza Pahlavi, he's the eldest son of the late Shah of Iran, says there's a 100-day transition plan in place if Khamenei falls. He also directed his message to the military, police, and state workers of Iran, many of whom he has said have contacted him in recent days. There's going to, again, he's talking about a 100-day transitional plan if the Islamic Republic falls in the war with Israel. He did a video yesterday in Farsi, sought to reassure Iranians that opposition forces have a plan for the country's future. Iran will not descend into civil war instability, he said. We are prepared for the first 100 days after the fall for the transitional period and for the establishment of a national and democratic government by the Iranian people and for the Iranian people. Again, he said, do not stand against the Iranian people for the sake of a regime. He's talking about to the police and the military now and state workers. Don't stand against them. If the regime's about to fall, if it's inevitable, stand with the people. You can save your lives and talk about building the future for Iran. And he goes on to say some things about the Ayatollah. He calls him a frightened rat. He says the Islamic Republic has reached its end, is in the process of collapsing, he declared. Khamenei, like a frightened rat, has gone into hiding underground and has lost control of the situation. He says the fall of the regime was irreversible, describing the moment as a historic turning point for the Iranian people. And he says the future is bright, and together we will pass through this sharp turn in history, he said. In these difficult days, my heart is with all the defenseless citizens who have been harmed and have fallen victim to Khamenei's warmongering and delusions. Now, Pahlavi, he has long advocated for a secular democratic Iran versus, Islamic Republic of Iran, and he's framed the regime's downfall as both imminent and necessary. And he said he's described the 46-year war against the Iranian nation from the Islamic Republic of Iran. He says all it takes now is a nationwide uprising to put an end to this nightmare once and for all. Well, what's going to happen? Well, like these other stories, we're going to have to wait and see. We're all waiting for what will happen next. We don't know, but when it does happen, we will give it to you, and we'll come in with an episode of breaking news and give you the latest. Until then, continue to pray for those bold people we've talked about earlier, who were patriots there in Iran who have been captured, and some are on the run. They've done there's a number of them are Messianic believers there, Iranian Jews, and they've done God's work there, and they're caught, found out, and so like we said, some have been captured. They'll all be killed if they're caught. There's no doubt about that, and killed in a very horrible way. So we want to pray for them, that God be with them, like we talked about yesterday, in a special way, like he's with Daniel in the lion's den or the three children in the fiery furnace. All right, so much going on. We'll continue to pray. We'll continue to watch. I'm Don Stewart. Until next time, as always, may the Lord richly, richly bless.